Project Veritas Exposed 2020 launched a new video today, this time going after Elizabeth Waren's staff. And I gotta say, this might be the first expose that makes those getting exposed actually look good. Now, I think it is bad for Waren's campaign because she's been embracing wokeness to such an absurd degree. Bill Maher's ragged on her several times and her polls keep tanking. But what we're learning now from Project Veritas is that several people in her staff are complaining about how she's going after the ultra woke vote instead of talking about what Americans really care about. Today is the first caucus, it's primary season, and Elizabeth Waren is actually trailing. Her polls have been slowly dwindling. One thing I find particularly interesting is a story back from October when Elizabeth Waren made some comments about transgender prisoners, and this was around the same time her polls started to steadily tank. I don't know if she got woke and went broke, but it seems to me that Waren's own staff are now upset that Elizabeth Waren did, in fact, with her blossoming and rising campaign spiking very, very high, she decided to go broke. You know who else did this? Was Kirsten Gillibrand. She was one of the wokest candidates. Well, the New York Times wrote an op-ed saying the wokest candidates are the weakest. So why is Waren doing this? I want to say, I don't know exactly. I don't want to say everything about Waren's staff are good, but I am happy that at least they're talking sanity. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be trickling up to the higher ups in the campaign, and Waren continues to make absurd comments. The latest, that she wanted her Secretary of Education to be vetted by a transgender child, to which Bill Maher said, forget the trans thing, why would you give veto power to a high schooler? What is wrong with these candidates? But we'll find out. Let's check out what Project Veritas has uncovered in the latest expose. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate. If you'd like to support my work, there's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, the best thing you can do, share this video. A lot of people probably won't watch Veritas. They assume they're lying. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me be that happy medium. I'm not going to be Veritas. I'm going to show you some sources. But I got to say, whether you want to believe what they're uncovering or not, these people are saying these things. And it's not just Waren's staff. It's Bill Maher. It's the New York Times. And it's been happening for months. So let's dive in, see what's going on. Exposed 2020 Part 5. Elizabeth Waren, Iowa campaign field organizer, says the Democrats lose elections because they prioritize pronouns over making sure people have a decent standard of living. When you come from where I come from, no one gives an F about a GD pronoun. People want to know how to create a job. That's awesome. I wish that person were running. I actually agree. So bravo Veritas, you actually made them look good. Unfortunately, as we saw with the Bernie Sanders expose, I'm willing to bet many of them are going to lock down their social media accounts, and Elizabeth Waren will not take any of this criticism seriously. And as we saw with the other candidates, they're going to get woke and go broke. Most of America does not know or care about wokeness, and for some reason, these candidates are chasing after Twitter to win a general election. Okay, hold on. They're trying to win a primary election. I get it. They want the activist vote, but I'm still willing to bet it's going to backfire on them. They say, Iowa field organizer, Waren campaign, and Angel Alicia, at the end of the day, we've become the party that has prioritized pronouns rather than putting food on the table for working families. And it's like, that's why we lose. Man, I'm so happy to hear this. This is like a weight lifted off my shoulder. Thank you. Angel, I don't know a whole lot about you, but I'll say that statement alone, those are good vibes your way. Okay, I respect this. This is right. Angel says, I got called out for not having those pronouns on my Twitter bio, so I threw them in there just to satisfy the folks. It's identity politics, and again, I get called on it for calling it that. Angel Alicia reveals discomfort with another Waren staff member, more prone to identity politics. Paige was like, you're the only straight person here. I'm like, who effing cares? I'm not saying you're the only effing trans here or something. This is what the effing Trump people utilize against us because you say dumb S like that. Because I like women, you're going to ostracize me? Yes. That's what we've all been complaining about. I'm glad to see that at least some people are pushing back on this. Regular Americans agree with Angel. Please tell us how to improve the economy. Well, Donald Trump did that. You know what, man? This is going to be a really Bill Maher heavy episode because he's talked about this so much. He recently did an interview with Megyn Kelly where he said people hate political correctness so much they will take it from the mouth of a werewolf if they push back against it. And then Megyn responded, that's what they like in Trump. He's a fighter, and that's the package he comes in. Man, I feel bad for Angel. He said, I had to do a diversity inclusion training, and I'm like, what are you going to tell me, you white liberals, that I don't already know? Isn't it funny that it's always the white progressives who seem to be the wokest? Elisa said, the chair of the Stonewall Caucus, which is like the LGBTQ caucus in the state, which has very little credibility. Their membership is like 20 or 30 people. They endorse Booker because Booker's team was like, come here with open arms because they need anything at this point. The main point is they endorsed Booker because we weren't going to effing lay out a red carpet for them. They're a liability, not an asset in the long term. This is the problem I've had with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders in 2016 went on the debate stage and he said, white people don't know what it's like to be poor. PolitiFact covers this. This is legit. He said this. I don't know why he said it, but boy, was that a complete 180 from everything he appeared to be fighting for in the past. That made me distrust him. He got woke. At an event, Black Lives Matter activists took the mic from him and he backed off. He has continually gotten woke and even gotten woke on immigration. He's changed his policies. And as the saying goes, get woke, go broke. Maybe it's because he needs to court the activist base they're all doing, but trying to go after woke Twitter is the biggest mistake you can make. They are a tiny, tiny fraction. And let me warn all of you, not only do progressive activists make up less than 8% of the U.S. population, according to More in Commons data. It's YouGov data. This is polling, okay? I don't know how to explain it to you other than that. Twitter. 2.2% of Americans are active Twitter users. Of that, around half are woke. I think it's fair to say less than that. Of the active Twitter users, even less are woke. So we're dealing with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction that is dictating the narrative. You know why? Here's the sad reality. Media companies need reach. They want reach. They go after people with large followings who have a better chance of sharing a story. News companies in the digital age don't care about facts. They care about clicks and shares to make money. Who's going to get clicks and shares? Someone with a large following on social media. They get prioritized over real journalists who don't want the attention and don't want to be in the media. Twitter then becomes dominated with well-funded activists who work in media with large followings, and they overrepresent wokeness. The politicians then chasing the news stories from these woke activists start pandering to things no one cares about. I'm sorry, Angel. I'm sorry I have to deal with this. My only advice to you right now is to quit the Warren campaign and go somewhere else and speak your truth exactly as you're saying it, because you are right. I feel bad, man. I kind of feel bad that this person's getting all of this exposure and pressure. Often you see bad people exposed by Veritas. Now, I'm not criticizing Veritas for this. I think they did a good job. I just think Angel should embrace the talking point, recognize that he does represent what Americans are truly interested in, making their lives better for everybody, the LGBTQ community or otherwise. But the problem is that you're hyper-focused on a tiny community of woke activists on Twitter instead of the general population. I wish the best for Angel. Look, I got to say another caveat. I don't know exactly what their politics are. I mean, they work for the Warren campaign. But I think Warren deserves praise in some areas. I mean, back when she started spiking in the polls, she was talking about going after big tech. And I was all down for that. Now, I got to be honest. She's a liar. You know, she's lied about so many things. I would never vote for her. You know what I mean? I probably fall in that Yang or bust bracket. I'm a big fan of Yang. I definitely disagree with UBI, but I think Yang is the best we have so far, and I think he's an all-around good dude who's made good points. There's some things I'd criticize him for 100%. I don't think he's going to win, but he's the only one I believe who has earned my trust and respect. Save Tulsi Gabbard. I know. But I think at this point, I don't think Yang or Tulsi are going anywhere. So I'm just like that, and of course the DNC is cheating. You get it. I'd love to see Angel succeed from this, to be actually given a chance to come out and say, you know what? Yes, I said it. I hope it doesn't reflect poorly on him, because while it is an undercover expose, and I think Veritas is doing the right thing, showing there is dissent in the ranks, I hope that somebody who's actually speaking truth and calling out the insanity and actually fighting for what American people actually care about, how to create a job, I hope they get rewarded, not punished. You know, when we see people talking about gulags and stuff, yeah, those people should be heavily criticized. And just criticized. I don't like a lot of the brigading that goes on the internet. There is harassment and stalking. It's not always, a lot of these people try to claim that criticism is harassment. It's not true. But at least as far as I can tell from so far, I feel bad for this person. But I think it's important that Veritas does what they does. Otherwise, you just don't know. And it's really important we learn that within the ranks of one of the progressive far left Democrats who's actually leading the pack, there are staffers saying no to the insanity. It's not just like a steamroller of far left, storming through. There are people actually pushing back. They say this: An Elizabeth Warren presidential campaign field organizer, Angel Alicia, was secretly recorded admitting to his frustration of extreme political correctness taking place within the Warren campaign. Alicia works out of the Warren campaign Iowa office, says that although he cares about transgender people, Democrats are losing elections for prioritizing gender pronouns over economic issues. Thank you. We all, listen, I think it's fair to say everybody, yeah, like the overwhelming majority, okay, obviously not literally everybody, but 99% of people want everyone to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. That's what America is all about. We may disagree on cultural issues, institutional issues, but most people want to respect others' individual liberty. Not everybody. Look, fascists and tankies exist. We get it. Authoritarian leftists and the right, they're all around. But most people, most good Americans, most voters are probably like, hey, man, you do you. Even conservatives. We disagree on laws and we argue over things that we should and shouldn't allow. I understand that. But most of us want to focus on how to make our lives better. When you hyper-focus on the boutique issues, as Rick Wilson said on Bill Maher, boutique issues in a Walmart country, you lose. Angel Alicia believes that Elizabeth Warren and the Democratic Party are misguided when it comes to the American people's priorities. He also thinks that his fellow Warren campaign staffers are part of the problem. Please, Angel, please make a video, come out, speak openly about this. I seriously mean it. Please talk about this. Call out these people who are pushing this fringe ideology that Americans don't want. It's hurting the Democrats. The sooner we can expose the insanity due to the media machine, the better off all of us will be. Angel said, at the end of the day, if we're going to prioritize pronouns over making sure people have a decent standard of living, that's wrong. The journalist responded, you're right. Angel said, and when you come from where I come from, no one gives an F about a GD pronoun. People want to know how to create a job. So it's possible this person believes, crazy things too. I don't know, Angel. And I think it's fair to point out, as I typically do, a lot of people try to go after Veritas saying it's out of context, but that's not necessarily the case or the issue. Some of these people on camera bragging about, in the Bernie exposés, like, dude, they're saying this stuff. We know they're saying this stuff. They try to downplay it, but no one's condemned the rhetoric. They've just ignored it and hushed it up. So I think it's fair to say these small snippets don't provide us with a perfect picture of who these individuals are, but it does show us a little bit about what they're thinking at the time, and based in certain contexts, I think it is relevant. So he says, the thing is, and I'm here for the pronoun things, but I just feel like I shouldn't have to say he, him, his. Like, shouldn't it just be implied? If I tell you otherwise, like I've been called out for saying something like that, but this is why we lose elections, because we're zeroing on S like that. Don't call her she in front of her. She'll be very upset. He said, use they, them pronouns, but it's like I'm still trying to get up to speed on that. But at the end of the day, we've become the party that has prioritized that rather than putting food on the table for working families. And it's like, that's why we lose. We're zeroing in on something, and I'm not saying it doesn't matter. We should make people feel comfortable and accepted. He says, when you put that, when you put that over making sure people have decent jobs and healthcare, like it's an effing no-brainer why we're going to GD lose an election. Yep. So he ended up saying he threw him into his Twitter bio. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you this. Bill Maher, recently on his show, just this past Friday, said we got to stay away from the crazy stuff. And I want to make sure it's very, very clear. I don't think that what Bill is saying or what Angel is saying or what's being exposed here is anything disparaging about the trans community. In fact, it's just the opposite. It's actually, well, not the most, the most perfect advocacy for. I think they're bringing up important issues of, look, we want to be there for trans people, protect them, make sure they have full legal rights and are recognized and all of that stuff. But the Democrats are focusing on issues that don't affect 99.9% of Americans. It affects a small portion of the population and those and their friends and family. So maybe 99.9 is a bit too much, but it's not so much about anything having to do with the trans community. It's about the exploitation of the community by people who have nothing to do with it, who want to use those issues to gain leverage among the activist base. They don't actually care. It just comes off like exploitation. Bill Maher said, he said, now Obama said people just don't want the crazy stuff. Is this not crazy stuff? Is she running for president of Berkeley? And that was the point. I'm not going to read through everything of Bill Maher's speech, but he was heavily critical of Warren. And there is a fear. These politicians are scared that if they say the wrong thing, it's going to come back and bite them. Now, here's what I want to show you that I find particularly interesting. This is the Real Clear Politics aggregate polling from throughout the going back to what's the first date? We have August 4th. Elizabeth Warren very briefly, it appears, hit number one by 0.2%. She beat Joe Biden. Amazing. And that was October 8th. Something happened and her polls started falling. They started falling a lot. They fell down fast underneath Bernie. And now she's in third place in aggregate polling. In October, we saw this story. Not just it was from Bill Maher once again, surprisingly. Now, I do have to make sure I point out Bill Maher kind of went nuts, said he was going to try not to cry. Like, dude, it's not perfect. But I can appreciate someone on the left actually calling this stuff out and trying to bring sanity back. Barbara K. Dems need to go beyond Twitter if they don't want 4 more years of crazy. 97% of tweets mentioning national politics came from only 10% of its users, according to a new U.S. study. And that's important because only around, I think, 22% of the country actually uses Twitter. And 10% of that, 2.2%, are active Twitter users. And around half of that are ideologically left. And a smaller portion are the woke left. And it's what's dominating the conversation. But the story starts with Bill Maher. Bill Maher was at the top of his game the other night, delivering a trenchant riff premised on advice to candidates for the Democratic nomination. This should be easy, he said. Just be less crazy than Donald Trump. The waves of laughter. Maher mocked the prominence of marginal issues in candidate platforms, such as giving prisoners the right to vote Bernie Sanders, and not to be outdone, the offer of free gender confirmation operations to the minuscule number of transgender individuals in the prison system, Elizabeth Waren. He also warned manic maximalist Beto O'Rourke that a vow to withdraw tax-exempt status from churches resistant to recognize gay marriage isn't a winning strategy in attracting the black vote. Whether or not you agree or disagree, this conversation came from famous comedian Bill Maher. These are things being said on HBO. I'm convinced YouTube might get mad at me for even talking about it, so I don't know what to tell you, but it needs to be talked about. Because Warren has been tanking right around the time this story came out. Right around the time she started talking about these issues, her polls slowly started to drop. It may be that in her panic and desperation as her polls dropped, she turned to wokeness. It made things worse. I don't know. It didn't help. It could also be that she embraced wokeness to try and boost herself beyond Biden, and it backfired. I believe the latter. I think it's probably the case that Warren was rising in the ranks. She was talking about going after Facebook. Hey, people were into that. And then what ended up happening was she went woke. She got broke. And her own staff think so. And that's why I feel that way. Look, I got to say, man, as critical as I've been, when Warren came out about the Facebook stuff and the Google stuff, I was actually praising her. Now, don't get me wrong. I criticize her heavily for her lies, but I think going after big tech monopolies was a pretty popular position. So what happened to make people start souring on her? At least in part, I'd be willing to bet it's that she got woke and then she went broke. That's why we're hearing it from her own staff. And that's why we saw from the New York Times. Now, I get it. The New York Times often likes to go after the left, and they're the centrist types. But the New York Times even hired some woke individuals. They've pushed the woke narrative. But in this op-ed from Jamel Bowie, why the wokest candidates are the weakest. If the fantasy that Democrats are all zealots were reality, the primary campaign would have turned out quite differently. In reality, Elizabeth Warren is failing. You see, Kirsten Gillibrand didn't make it. Check this out. They say this is an old story from back when Gillibrand was relevant in July. A white woman from Ohio asked Gillibrand about white privilege. Her answer was spot on. And as the New York Times said, the primary would be very different if wokeness really did matter to the average Democrat. The average Democrat voter does not care about the issues that affect small fractions of people. They want the candidate to be a big tent for issues that affect everybody. So by all means, put in your platform how you're going to protect the trans community. I completely agree with that. I think it's fantastic. Absolutely. But you need to make sure that when you're trying to tell people what you're going to bring them, it is something everyone can relate to. Otherwise, they wander around. And now we have a Democratic Party that is fractured as every different direction. I don't even know what half the candidates are actually campaigning on. What is Joe Biden's message? Seriously, do you know Joe Biden's campaign slogan? I don't know it. Does he have one? Is it Joe Biden, let's just stay the same? Let's go back to the way it used to be before Trump made the country great again? Like, I don't know what his slogan is. What about Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is us, not me, right? Is that Bernie? So look, I absolutely know what Bernie is campaigning on, 100%. And for the most part, it isn't wokeness, but he's certainly entertaining the overly woke. For him, I think the important thing is that Bernie hasn't really been playing that game like Warren has, which is why he surpassed her. Let's go back to the aggregate polling. I'll say this. While Bernie does surround himself with Ocasio-Cortez, who is very woke, we can see that Bernie has started to go up and up and up, while Warren's gone down, and Bernie's kept it to populist left-wing issues like Medicare for all and the environment. And while, again, I know Bernie is woke, it's not something you hear often of him going out and saying these things that Warren says about having a child determine who a cabinet member would be. Forget, like Bill Maher said, the trans issue is not relevant. Warren said she wanted a child to vet her cabinet members. It just literally does not make any sense. So I'll throw it back to that staffer, Elizabeth Waren. Man, I hope you issue a statement. I hope you don't just shut things down or quit. I think what you said was popular and populist, and people need to hear it. They really, really do. They need to know that you as an individual are still standing up for what the average American is looking for. Back in April, almost a full year ago, Bill Maher warned Democrats against making immigration issue a woke contest in 2020. Well, I know the immigration issue is mostly, Trump won on that front. But beyond that, Bill Maher at least has made that point. Yep. Democrats have started a woke contest, and it turned out miserably for everybody. Like the New York Times said, if the party, like the actual individuals who vote, were this woke, things would have been very different. So why won't Elizabeth Warren get the message? I don't understand. You've seen Kirsten Gillibrand, who was the wokest of them all, kind of fizzle out. You'd think they would have learned their lesson that issues like healthcare and immigration, these are things people care about. But the smaller issues, the fringe issues, the woke Twitter issues, people aren't concerned about. You'd think they'd do better. They're not. I think Biden is only polling as well as he is because it's Obama. It's like, okay, we'll go back to how Obama was, I guess. There's trust that at least it'll be, not bad, I guess. But he's not really campaigning on anything. I don't even know what Joe Biden's asking for, or all I know is he insults people all the time and literally has told people not to vote for him. I gotta be honest. I said it before. I don't think Joe Biden's actually running. I really don't. He's not raising money. His staff is all over the place. He insults people. He tells, hey, you should go vote for Bernie. You should go vote for Trump. Okay, dude, then why are you here? Because he has a default vote from people who are like, I don't know, Biden, I guess. Well, there's actually a joke about that. A bumper sticker says Bernie 2020. Okay, I guess maybe Biden. Like that's the joke or something. I don't know what I saw. Or I think it was they did the same thing with Hillary. Like, okay, maybe, I guess. Anyway, you get the point. I think one of the biggest things that hurts the Democratic candidates, like this angel exposed by Veritas is saying, it's spot on. I think that's why Warren took a hit. I think it's why Gillibrand fizzled out. And I think the Democrats who want to win need to avoid talking about the stuff because you do not want Bill Maher coming after you. Look, Bill Maher doesn't represent all of the left. He's not perfect. He says a bunch of really dumb things, in my opinion. But I really respect that at least the left has him. Unfortunately, the progressives really don't like him. Yeah, they call him all the worst names in the book. And unfortunately, I think at this point, Bill Maher is more of a classical liberal in line with the intellectual dark web than anything else. And the only thing keeping him where he is, maintaining his audience, is that he's got Trump derangement syndrome. But look, somehow Bill Maher became a big piece of this segment, I guess, because he's repeatedly ragged on Warren and the wokeness in the Democratic Party. And the reality is, whether you like the guy or not, he's right. He is. So I'll wrap it up here. Much respect to Angel for calling this stuff out. I wish you would speak publicly. I know not everybody could, but at least you're saying something to some people. At least, even if it's just someone who's talking to you about the campaign, you're willing to speak up. It could be that he doesn't have the platform required to actually stand up to this stuff, but you can see that Angel was absolutely willing to call it out. Much respect. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 6 p.m. youtube.com/TimCastNews. I will see you all next time.